It's the Chris Salcedo Show. Happy you've tuned in, everybody, to the program. Our telephone number here, 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. We like to check in with our legal eagles every now and again, folks, to keep our eye on something that we conservatives value very much, justice. And I guess I have to point out to this comic that I'm putting up on all of our social media. It's a skeleton sitting in on a park bench saying, "This is Americans waiting for something, any accountability to a Democrat out there for what they have done." In that vein, let me bring on our guest right now, folks. We are talking to Joe DIGENOVA, former United States Attorney for Washington. And Victoria Toensing is the former chief counsel for the Senate Intelligence Committee. Legal Eagles here to the Chris Salcedo Show. Hey, guys, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chris.
Great to have you as always. Look, I was going to start off with the president, but let's start off with something that happened late last night, which is, well, the Clintons have reversed themselves, and they've decided that they will go and talk with James Comer. What do you guys think about that reversal? Is it the Clintons just knew they were going to be sent to jail because the Democrats set the precedent? Victoria, you first.
Last week on Newsmax, I predicted it. I said that the Democrats were up a creek without an oar because they had said, Epstein, 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 and they had to vote for contempt. And so they did. And now we're going to have the Clintons. How wonderful.
Yes. Well, the contempt comes with jail because that's what they did to Navarro and Bannon, right, for doing the same thing. And Joe, about Epstein, talk about the Clintons caving, but also talk about the Epstein files. All of a sudden, it's very quiet out there after a new tranche is released, showing nothing but negative for Democrats.
Yeah, I think the Democrats are very sorry that they got what they wished for. They were stupidly thinking that this was all about Donald Trump, when in fact it wasn't at all about Donald Trump. There's no evidence whatsoever of any serious relationship between the president and Epstein, or any visits to the island or trips on his plane or anything else. The president's had his own plane for 50 years. He doesn't need Epstein's plane. The bottom line is this. Bill Clinton is up to his scuppers and hot tubs with Jeffrey Epstein. And the bottom line is there's plenty of evidence he's going to commit perjury. Bill Clinton will do everything he can to answer a question directly. He will try to avoid, he will dissemble. Hillary Clinton will just plain lie. She's not as good as her husband. She's terrible. She's the worst politician in history. She's the worst witness in history. And they're going to do everything they can to try and limit questioning. That will not be agreed to by the Republicans. By the way, this is really good because it's a deposition. It's not in public. So there will be lengthy questioning by single members and lawyers. So there's none of this 5 minutes of questioning crap.
I love it. I love it. So we'll see what comes of it. But it's notable, folks, that this reversal happened. Now, let's start with the president. He jumps on Bongino's program, by the way, debuted again after his stint as deputy FBI director on Rumble yesterday. Massive tune in for this. And President Trump was joining Dan Bongino and had this conversation. I'm going to split it in two, get you guys to comment on various aspects of this. The first is what I want you guys to focus on, because this is something I can't back the president on. Listen to this.
Sort of nationalize the voting. And we have states that are so crooked and they're counting votes. We have states that I won that show I didn't win. Now you're going to see.
Okay. He's talking about nationalizing the vote. Now, you and I, Victoria, you and I both know that the reason why we have 50 separate elections is it's hard for a foreign state to rig those elections, to influence the election. If we start federalizing, quote unquote, elections, isn't that bad news for the republic?
Yeah, and unconstitutional, by the way, Chris.
Yeah.
What should be gotten rid of are particular things that states do, like, and I'm like beating this drum forever, mail out ballots.
Thank you.
There are 8 states that do this. They mail out ballots to everybody on the quote unquote voter registration list. And wow, think about that as being ripe for fraud. I know people in Vermont that got 3 ballots and there were only 1 person in the house. I mean, this is just ripe for fraud. So do away with the things that make the elections a problem and do not federalize it, or the Democrats will turn around and say, we don't want ID for any election the next time they're in charge.
Right, precisely. And Joe, like in places like Wisconsin, where the voter rolls show 7.13 million eligible voters. However, there are only 4 million adults in the entire damn state to be able to vote. It's that kind of malfeasance. When you nationalize an election, that's wrong. I think what the president was trying to say is we need to have some standards. Like, let's not allow states to openly cheat. I think that's what he was driving at.
Well, as usual, the president has a great idea and he doesn't explain it very well. The bottom line is this. He wants to have standards, as you just put it, for certain aspects of federal elections, not state elections, not city councils, not counties, for federal election office, United States Senator, House of Representatives, and President. And those standards under the Constitution, the Congress can write laws for that. And that's all the president's talking about. For example, as Victoria said, no mail-out ballots, no mail-in ballots, all in-person voting, voter ID, driver's license, proof of citizenship. The Congress can do that in a New York minute.
Yep, election day, not election month. Now,
exactly.
To that end, let's listen to the rest of this soundbite from President Trump talking to Dan Bongino and what he says about Fulton County, Georgia.
Something in Georgia where they were able to get, with a court order, the ballots. You're going to see some interesting things come out. But, like the 2020 election, I won that election by so much. Everybody does it. They put a woman in jail, Colorado, put a woman in jail, a wonderful woman, 72 years old, had cancer, because she was a voting inspector. She was in charge of a voting area, and she saw boxes of votes come in. So she went over to check it, and they put her in jail for voter manipulation, and she's still in jail. And they better let her out fast. And they're suffering a big price, Colorado. Ooh. They have this woman in jail who's 71 years old and probably has cancer. She's sick. And they put her in because she challenged somebody that was dumping ballots into a box, okay? And they didn't put them in jail. This was during Biden's term. The worst president in history. And we had some bad ones. I mean, look, Barack Hussein Obama, I call him the Great Divider. People couldn't stand him. You mentioned his name, they go crazy. They start booing the hell out of him. We had some really bad ones. I mean, Jimmy Carter wasn't exactly the greatest. Jimmy Carter didn't exactly have the hit on Venezuela that I remember.
Wow. Okay, so the president goes on from there. But again, this allegation made by the president, Victoria, that there are more shoes to drop in Fulton County, Georgia. What say you?
First of all, let me just say, somebody said that when Trump leaves the White House, he's going to be a comedian. And I have no doubt about that. There are a lot of shoes to drop.
Yes.
In Georgia, Chris. I worked on that in the 2020 election. I know Georgia well. And Governor Kemp made an illegal, unconstitutional deal with that devil, Stacey Abrams, to mail out ballots to everyone on the voter registration list and to have those ballots returned to unsecured ballot drop boxes, for God's sake. But that time has passed. I mean, and I also learned, it was the state legislature that was supposed to correct that. Right. And they were all chicken because Brian Kemp threatened to take every chairman off of this committee if they did anything about it. So I learned that the Georgia state legislature has a lot to go to get to be a mature body. Having said that, I don't know what else they can find, and I don't know what their aim is. They've asked for the voter registration list, and maybe there's some checkoff thing that they have. But outside of that, I do not know what the aim is, except to make Trump feel a bit better.
Well, Joe, the Justice Department search warrant on Fulton County, Georgia, the elections data there, the 700 boxes, quote, evidence of the commission of a criminal offense and property which has been used as a means of committing a criminal offense. Georgia is a crime scene now, courtesy of Brad Raffensperger and Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams and all the rest who benefited from this. What many people are saying was a crime that was undertaken inside of Georgia's elections. What say you?
Well, I happen to think that what the Justice Department is doing is they have enough evidence to get a search warrant, and they have enough evidence to impanel a grand jury, and they're going to start putting witnesses in the grand jury about how things were done, how they were handled, what processes were not followed. By the way, Victoria noted that Raffensperger did this illegal agreement with Stacey Abrams for all mail-in ballots.
Right.
Guess what happened when he ran for re-election? He canceled all those rules,
Yes.
and there were no mail-in ballots for his election.
Yes.
Gosh, Governor, listen. Raffensperger, the secretary, and Kemp,
Yes.
Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, and Kemp, the governor, are two of the most politically corrupt individuals in the history of the United States. Listen, they are pathetic. They are the worst type of Republicans. They're not even Republicans, but what they have done to the state of Georgia and to Donald Trump deserves a federal grand jury.
Amen to that. You know, Tulsi Gabbard was there, and leading many to believe that there was foreign influence in what happened inside of Georgia. I tend to believe that because as we pivot from Georgia to another left-wing state, run by left-wingers, I should say, because Georgia itself is not a left-wing state. It's just run by left-wingers. We go to Minnesota, and we had this signal chat controversy blow up, Victoria, and it's kind of gone away. But what was implicated on this encrypted app were foreign enemies of the United States, were Democrats, elected Democrats, some appointed, some part of the political apparatus, and fake news journalists on this signal chat setting up all of these hits against ICE agents. This is a coordinated effort, Victoria, to subvert the United States of America from enforcing its own laws. Not only is that illegal, doesn't that fit a sedition or a treason aspect? That's what Art Del Cueto from the Border Patrol told me when he heard about this story. What do you say?
I say that I'm reading Peter Schweitzer's book, Invisible Coup.
Oh.
And so I am not surprised at all. Foreign adversaries have been involved, especially Mexico, in our elections for decades. And we better get real about it. Why are there 80 consulates from Mexico, Mexican consulates in the United States, when Great Britain has eight, and Mexico has over 50? We have a real problem of people from foreign countries being in our country and affecting our elections. And the Justice Department ought to look at it. And I'm sure they can look at these chat things. I'm no big IT expert, but I can just bet that the Justice Department can find out who's doing this.
It's evidence of a conspiracy. There's no question about it. And the Chinese government is up to their scuppers in this. This is unbelievable. That's why the grand jury in Minneapolis is so important. They can get into all this. They can force the release of the signal data and show exactly what was going on. I have no doubt that there are people involved in a conspiracy there involving foreign governments that can be indicted in Minneapolis.
Right. And Joe, just to expand on this, because again, you have people from Canada implicated on this, people from China implicated on this. You have a Reuters reporter allegedly and an NPR reporter allegedly involved in this signal chat, a la Don Lime, which we'll get to here in a minute. And then you have Democrats all colluding to stop Immigration and Customs Enforcement from enforcing U.S. law. That, to me, I mean, there's got to be a legal term for that, either sedition, insurrection, whatever. What is the legal term, I guess, is what I'm asking.
It's interfering and obstructing the operations of a federal agency. There's a federal law against that. It's one thing to have a chat about something and say, you wish this would happen or that. It's another thing to implement a strategy to go out and actually interfere with the actions of the ICE and the Border Patrol agents. That's a crime. It's not even a close question. Those conversations are evidence of a conspiracy to interfere and impede the enforcement of federal law. It's not even close.
All right. Last two things. Before I get to Don Lime, I do want to ask, Victoria, since you have been following this better than anybody, Leader Thune, who has a lot of people have been saying sitting on his hands, some say sitting on his thumbs, but we won't go into that. I want to ask you, where are we with Trump's choices for U.S. attorneys so that we can start bringing some law pressure on those who had violated the law during the 4-year occupation of the Oval Office of President Otto Penn?
Well, we're not in very good shape, Chris. There should have been, every U.S. attorney should have been confirmed by now, and they're not. And I don't know what the Republicans are doing. It's a shame. I think in Minneapolis, they still don't have a real U.S. attorney. And the problem with that is that unless you're confirmed, you're hesitant to do anything that goes beyond, what you're really fight for something, because then you're going to get in trouble in the confirmation. Just ask Ed Martin from DC.
Yeah.
So we've got to have people who are our fighters out there, our U.S. attorneys. We love them. I love my U.S. attorney.
Yeah. The problem is Thune. Thune, by the way, if you watch television every day, you would think that Chuck Schumer is the majority leader.
Right?
The guy with the pithy comments, lies continuously to the American people, goes out like he's running the Senate. Thune stands there like a buffoon. He's not a good leader. He doesn't have the chops. He's never been a good leader. He's always been a guy who got along to get along to go along, whatever. The bottom line is he's not a good leader. And he's committed to the blue slip. And if you're committed to the blue slip, you're not going to get your nominees.
True enough. And of course, we're all going to pay, and the Democrats get away with breaking law again, which leads me to Don Lime, guys. The reason why we call him Don Lime is because he used to get trashed on national television on tequila. So we changed his name officially. It's kind of our pet name for him. And he was arrested, and then he was released. I want you both to give me your legal take on this, because my understanding, he had no bond. They just let him go. And I'm wondering, Victoria, if it's Chris Salcedo who's arrested for doing the same thing, which we'll get to with Joe in greater detail about what he did. But is that normal to release somebody that committed this crime without any bond whatsoever?
This is California, right? Wasn't it a California federal judge?
Yeah, I think that's where he was arrested. He was at the Grammys, wasn't he?
What's normal where there's abnormal? It's normal. But Limon, and I call him Limon.
Monsieur Limon.
Is charged with two different crimes.
Yeah.
One of them, the FACE Act. And the other, ironically, the KKK Act. And the FACE Act, there may not be sufficient evidence of force, because you're supposed to use force to interfere with a person's constitutional rights. Right. But in the KKK Act, it's a conspiracy. And so that makes Limon responsible for every act that every other person committed.
And no, he's on camera, to Victoria's point. He's on camera saying, I know exactly what they're going to do. He had foreknowledge of a crime and he didn't report it. He actually acted to stop people from finding out right away what was going on, so people would tune in to his worthless piece of garbage, whatever program it is. But again, we heard stories, Joe, coming out of this because there was a Sunday school underneath this church. The parents were in services, the children were in Sunday school. When the children heard the commotion, they tried to get up to their parents naturally. And these leftists, these Marxists, these freaks decided they would stop the children from reuniting with their parents, and told them their parents were going to hell because they were Nazis. And this is what Don Lime and his co-conspirators, I would say, did.
Yeah, well, what you have there when the rioters entered the school part of the church and prevented the children from leaving, that's kidnapping. That's kidnapping. That's a life sentence in Minnesota under there. It's also kidnapping under federal law. It's extortion, which is another life sentence under federal law. Even though they may not have been armed, nonetheless, it's still a life sentence. The stuff upstairs where they falsely entered the church. Remember, they entered the church quietly at first. Yes. They did not. Then after they got started, then they started rioting, interrupting the service, interrupting the blessings, interrupting the sacraments. So the bottom line is this. This is clearly a case, and including the SAVE Act, which you can charge a conspiracy under. Don Lemon's covered. He's dead meat when it comes to the number of crimes that plus all the other people involved. The thing that's going to get him is the conspiracy, the FACE Act.
Yes.
The thing that's going to get him is locking the children in the basement. They're going away to prison for that.
All right. Well, it would be great, as we started off the conversation, it would be great to see some accountability in this country for leftists for a change. Joe DIGENOVA and Victoria TOENSING, the Legal Eagles here at the Chris Salcedo Show. Guys, thank you very much. Always appreciate the expertise.
Always good to be with you.
Good to be with you.